Good evening, everyone. I'm Michael Herbert, your town manager, and I would like to welcome all of you, whether you're joining us on Zoom or you're watching on WACA or Facebook. I'd like to welcome you all to our final public forum regarding the proposed public safety facility. This is in advance of the upcoming town meeting on Saturday and also the town election on Wednesday. Before I go on and introduce the committee, I just wanted to go through the format of how we're going to do tonight. What we're going to do first is we'll go through a presentation of the project. And as we go through, I'm going to ask everyone to hold their questions until the end. And then afterwards, we'll take all the questions and we'll answer them to the best of our ability. And I will say tonight, we're going to be throwing a lot of data at you. You're going to be seeing pictures with the current inadequacies of the facilities. You're going to see many, many charts and graphs and numbers. Some of it might seem a bit overwhelming. All I'm going to ask you to do is to look at it through two simple lenses. And that's, as an Ashland resident, do you feel like this project presents a good value for the money? And then do you also think this project reflects our values as a community? I feel both of them, the public safety building and the Mendez School, do in fact check all of those boxes for sure. But I understand that it's a personal choice. And it's no secret to anyone that if you want to improve your quality of life, you need to make an investment in yourself. Individuals have to make investments in themselves. Like, for example, you have to quit a job to go back to school. You need to make investments in your relationships to make sure that each of you are getting your full potential out of them. And then communities are just the same. You have to make an investment in yourself as a community. Otherwise, you can't maintain, much less improve the quality of life for the residents there. So having said that, I'm going to try to share my screen correctly. Start a presentation. Okay. First, I'd like to introduce the members of the Public Safety Building Committee. So we have Joe Mignani and Steve Mitchell. They're two select board members. Joe was a police officer for 34 years. I thought I'd say that before he got the chance to say that. Myself and Jennifer Ball, our assistant town manager, are on the committee, as well as Chief Alfano and Chief Roby. Paul Carpenter, our director of technology, is part of our committee as an ex officio member. And then we have two community members, Brett Walker and Peter Chisholm. And we feel like this committee really reflects both the professional aspects and the community concerns with a project of this size. We also have, as part of our project team, an excellent project manager, John Lemieux from the Vertex companies. And then we have HKT Architects as our designer and engineers. And the principals working on our project are Janet Slaminda and Amy Dunlap. This is a project, the public safety building, that we have been talking about for decades. Those of you that have been in town that long know this. Chief Roby actually has some articles from the late 80s that talk about the inadequacy of our facilities and the inadequacy of having facilities separated across town. In 2002, this was really memorialized by the police chief at that point, who had written to the select board and said that it was really imperative that we get a new facility. In 2008, and because of that and because of the need, we did a fire and police station needs assessment and location study through the Matrix Consulting firm. In 2014, my predecessor, town manager Schiavi, he reassembled the Public Safety Building Committee. And we really we had a transition in leadership there. And then in 2018 is when we really started kind of picking up the ball and running with it. We hired HKT to do a land feasibility study where we looked at a number of different parcels and narrowed them down to two, one on the MBTA access road and one on East Union Street where it splits up and goes to the high school. Really narrowed it down to those two, and based on all the criteria that they had been given, and they came up with the East Union Street site as being the best site for a joint public safety facility, mainly because of operational issues and being able to go across the tracks. Later in 2018, the select board signed a gift agreement with the landowner at that Union Street property. It was for a gift of almost 4 acres, 3.82 exactly. Later that year in November, we had a vote for design and engineering funding, and that was $3.5 million. And so after that was successful, we went through the process of selecting the OPM, which again, John Lemieux and Vertex, the architect and design and engineering of the building. We went through that as well. Went through a number of different permitting processes, including the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board. And we ended up with our final designs. And we went out to bid in late 2020 and got those bid results in between Christmas and New Year's. And here we are, getting ready for the special town meeting, which is on Saturday, the 23rd, and the special town election, which is on the 27th. Just go into the need for a new building. This is just 2 shots of our Main Street facilities. Station 1, a fire station, which was built in the 1920s, and the police station, which was built in 1978. It's been kind of crammed in there, catty corner in a way. But, you know, just looking at the outside doesn't give you a good idea of what is going on inside and how much space we lack and how much dedicated space we lack. And you can see a couple of the pictures here just showing that we're trying to make do. Actually, WACA is running a series of very short video clips that show the inadequacies in a lot better detail of our current buildings. And then Chief Roby, you can probably explain a little bit better some of the more modern concerns that we have as a fire department.
Yeah, one of the biggest things with us is obviously the health and wellness of the firefighters, and we're finding cancer rates within the fire department. And actually, whether people know it or not, we actually have 3 firefighters, all 3 of which I worked with at one point, that have since passed away with some kind of form of cancer, and all have been put on the firefighters memorial in Springfield, in Colorado. So their names have been added because they assume it to be related to their fire service, the type of cancer they had. But the biggest thing is our exposures when we go in the fire station. Our gear right now, currently, as you see, hangs around all the fire apparatus, and it shouldn't be. It should be stored in a separate room, separate ventilation. So when we come back from a fire and we have toxins on our gear and stuff, we can go into a room, take off the fire gear, hang that and wash it in that room so it gets vented out, but also have a room next to it that we can go in, shower, change, and get out of the clothes that we were currently wearing. And today we don't have that ability. We have to walk actually through the fire station and go through the complete station before we can get to a shower or changing facility. So for us, that would be a big improvement on the actual layout and having the space to have the layout.
Awesome. Thanks, Chief Roby. And then Chief Alfano, you've got no shortage of interesting stories regarding our space and lack of space and the inadequacy of our current space, even though you're a relative newcomer here.
Yeah, that was one of the first things I noticed when I joined the department, were inadequacies within the building. One thing that really definitely needs correction is when the building opened in the 70s, there were no provisions at the time for female bathrooms or female locker rooms. We have quite a few female members of our staff, both sworn and civilian. And right now they're in a sort of a ramshackle trailer in the parking lot of the station. Their locker facilities and their restroom facilities are in that trailer. The trailer is in need of repair. We're going to have to start sinking some serious money into it. It's in failure right now. It's dangerous for the females to have to leave the building to use the bathroom, then come back into the building. Our dispatch staff, the female dispatchers, actually have to call an officer in off the road, off a patrol, to cover for them while they leave the building to use the restroom facilities. Just not a good situation at all. Actually, today I was approached by the female officers and staff. They're being terrorized by a skunk that is living under their trailer, spraying everywhere. So we have to expend town funds tomorrow to have a pest service come out and relocate the wayward skunk. But that's just one story out of many as far as the inadequacies of the building. Safety is a big concern of mine, as well as Chief Roby had indicated. Our booking facilities and our prisoner holding areas within the station are substandard. As a matter of fact, they're actually dangerous. The prisoner handling areas have a high propensity for assaults on officers, for prisoners being injured, for officers being injured. The cell block is not adequate. It does not serve the needs at all for the department and is unsafe. The actual physical facility itself, I've spoken before of our beautiful copper roof. It looks wonderful, but it's a death trap in the winter. The snow and ice slide off it like it's on a toboggan. We've had cruiser windshields smashed that were parked against it. We've had officers injured by falling snow and ice. And it's right over our main entrance. So, we just hope it doesn't happen to any of our visitors coming in. So the station itself is just really gone through its stage of life. We're really going to have to, if it's not replaced, start sinking some serious funding into it, replacing all the utility systems. The toilets and the sinks are so old, they don't even make parts for them anymore. So our facilities department is always challenged in repairing them. So, the list could go on and on and on. Many things disrupt operation within the station. The officers had a very large marijuana arrest last week. They arrested several drug dealers, quite a bit of marijuana and drug-related cash. When we had to tow the suspect vehicle into the station, into our Sally Port, so the State Police Crime Lab could come down and process it, the odor and the stench of marijuana was so overwhelming, it basically put the police station out of commission for 2 days. I could not sit in my office, and officers had to leave their admin space. It was just awful. And we had to, again, have the facilities department come down and try to deodorize the building. Just unsafe and inadequate facility.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Chief Roby could go on too as well and talk about some of the concerns. There's also community concerns here as well, not just the safety of our officers. So the way the current station is configured, or stations are configured, sometimes, like if we need to have an emergency response with specialized equipment, sometimes firefighters have to go from one station, go pick up the equipment at the other station, and then respond to the call. And then everybody knows about the tracks running through the middle of downtown. Can provide a little bit of an inconvenience. I think that's an understatement if you are, trying to get home from work or trying to work. But, when it's an emergency, it becomes really, really important when seconds matter. And so if you've got an ambulance and you're trying to get to someone and those trains are running through the middle of downtown, it can be very, very, very nerve wracking for everyone. The new station would provide access to the Fountain Street Bridge, which goes right over the tracks. So it eliminates that problem as well. So when we designed this building, of course, the things that we were really trying to focus on were a lot of the inadequacies of the current building and the outdated features, and really just kind of bringing it up to really 20th century standards, not just 21st. But we also had an eye towards sustainability. That's really, really important to us as a community. And so we incorporated that into the design of the building. The main thing that we did is we introduced into the HVAC conversation a geothermal system as opposed to a more traditional system. And we actually decided to go with that geothermal heat pump system. We have a solar ready building. It will not have solar panels right now, but what we did is we actually made the decision to go ahead and reinforce the roof, provide conduit within the building to put solar panels on when the time was right. So we don't have to go through the added expense when we do make that decision to go ahead and reinforce the roof and tear everything up and rebuild it again. We also have things like electric vehicle charging stations, green roofs, we've got low flow fixtures, enhanced insulation in part of the building to improve the R values. The Sustainability Committee met last week, and we were really pleased to get their endorsement of the building, and happy that they are recognizing the long-term sustainability that this project provides. So let's get to the design a bit. So we'll start with the outside. Don't want to spend too much time on this because I think a picture speaks a thousand words, but Um, if you look at this, if you look at the one that's from the front, you'll see the apparatus bays for the fire department on the left side as you're looking towards it. And then on the right side are things like the administrative offices, the cells, the booking areas, the firefighters' quarters, a lot of the shared spaces, and the administrative areas. Went through a number of different designs. The committee selected uh, this particular design. We had the help of one of our design review committee members, Bill Savage, who came in and helped with the finished materials, and really appreciate his input and expertise on this as well. The first floor plan, again, mainly you have the apparatus bays, dispatch records, the lobby and community room, which is very, very important. The police operations and Sallyport detention areas. That's all going to be located on the first floor. Our second floor area is where you're going to have like the support areas for the police, including like the locker rooms and the fire living quarters. And then really the rest of the space is dedicated to a lot of the mechanical systems. And then finally, the third floor plan, we have the police administration and fire administration. So, and then we have an elevator, going from the first floor up to the third floor, of course. This building would be fully ADA compliant. I know that was one question. Although this is a building that is designed to be of use for 50 plus years, we didn't want to be penny wise and pound foolish, but we did find some items where we could eliminate them to reduce some of the costs. So one of the things that we did is we reduced the bunk rooms. So in the future, as our staff grows, we might people up in a dorm room. We reconfigured the lobby and emergency command center. We consolidated some of the areas such as the kitchen and the fitness room, and did a few other things, including eliminate a jail cell. So now I'm going to get to the financial information. This is really where you're going to see just a lot of numbers, and you're going to see a lot of eye charts. Hopefully I've made them clear enough. But again, I'm just going to ask everybody who's watching to just look at it from the lens of, does this provide a good value? And does it reflect the values of the community? First, I'll go with the project budget. So the total project budget for this building is $30.9 million. Now that includes $22.4 million in construction costs. That's based on the low bidders price that they submitted. Furniture and technology and communications is at 1.6. Design and OPM fees make up a little over 3 million. We have other administrative costs, which are total at 800,000. And then what's a little bit different from other projects is we beefed up the contingency significantly. What we did is we looked at the second lowest bidder and looked at some of the other contingencies that we needed to have. And we wrapped that into one contingency. And that's why it's so large. So in case anything comes up, we wouldn't need to go over that $30.9 million project budget. We did, as I mentioned before, approve $3.5 million in 2018. So that's already been appropriated. And so what we're requesting from town meeting is $27,400,000. And I think, again, everybody wants to see what kind of value are we getting from this building. One way you can look at that is, looking at the cost per square foot. This is just construction costs, by the way, because that's really kind of the only solid comparable that you can have. The anomaly of all anomalies in terms of municipal bidding came a couple years ago in Southborough, when the estimate came in how much lower, John, than what the bids came in how much lower than the estimate?
Sorry, I was on mute. Millions of dollars. I mean, it really was a project that had been estimated in the about $500 a square foot range, 520, and as you can see, came in at just under 460. It really was again, I think it was $2 million in bid savings that the town was able to hold aside.
And so again, that's considered the anomaly of all anomalies, right, John? You think that was a bit of a lifetime?
We hadn't seen that to date, up until that point, and we have not seen it since. And you can see a lot of these other projects that are on this list that between Vertex and Compass that we've been involved in, those prices escalated to today are far in excess of that. I think it just was at the time it was, the time was right. And, we benefited from some bid interest from the West, from the North, from the South, from the East. So there was some great competition, but again, hasn't been matched since. Until this project, which pretty darn good number there for Ashland in this case as well.
Yeah, we were initially, our estimate had a total project cost of 36.5. So right now we're at 30.9. Our last estimate was 36.5. One of the reasons why we pushed forward with this project in the middle of a pandemic is because John and other experts were telling us there is no municipal work out there. And because of that, contractors are bidding very, very aggressively, and we should see lower costs than what we anticipated. What we did not anticipate was how low a cost that we would see. So John was accurate in his prediction. When we did open those bids, we did receive 6 bids. All of them were below the construction cost estimate that was provided in November or December. The lowest came in at $7 million less than the last estimate. So again, that drops our cost per square foot down just over the Southborough mark there of $458. And so we're really excited about that. This is a great opportunity to take advantage of, again, a contracting in a municipal work environment, or the lack of municipal work, to our advantage. And this cost per square foot is even after you factor in things like site work. We have, it's a complicated site. I don't want to, diminish that. So there are some site work costs there. And then also putting in some of these sustainability features are a little bit more expensive as well. So the question is how much is this going to cost in the budget? Well, that's the next logical question, I should say. So if you look at this project paid over 30 years, and that's at, $30.9 million, paid over 30 years at a very conservative interest rate right now, which is projected at 2%, you come up with a annual debt service cost of $1,379,000. I'll go back to the interest rate a bit. We're using 2%. When you average over the last quarter what the true interest cost rates were for communities that are rated as high as Ashland, which is AAA, that's the top rating that you can get, it actually came out to 1.25%. So we're trying to still be very, very conservative here. Historically in Ashland, all of this would be financed through a debt exclusion. So that means a tax increase over and above the levy limit. So what it goes up usually, it's a tax increase above that. But what we have made a decision to do, and we did this last year actually, is we have found other parts of the budget that we could reduce in order to help pay for this project. And one of the things that we did is we looked at the capital budget, and we're going to commit $250,000 every year from the capital budget to help pay for this project, and then $500,000 in existing departmental budgets a year to help pay for this project as well. So it would not require a tax increase for those. Again, we have to do that every year. We feel confident that we're going to be able to do that every year. The way this is enforced, if you want to use that type of term, is actually at town meeting. Town meeting votes the appropriation. If there is a variation to this plan, town meeting can certainly change it back to what the original plan was. But having said that, I am responsible for putting forward the budget, both the operating and capital budget. I'm not planning on going anywhere anytime soon. And so, my commitment is to produce a budget that has this included all the time. And when you look at those offsets, you can reduce the required debt exclusion. It gets it down to $629,000. So what does that $629,000 mean for the average taxpayer? So this is the estimated average single-family tax increase for debt excluded projects. This is for a home valued at $427,000. So the number that you see here, if your home is valued or is assessed at less than 427,000, these numbers will be lower. If your home is assessed at higher than 427,000, these numbers will be higher. And we can, if you have an interest in that, please feel free to email me and we can calculate that for you. What you see here in the gray is you see the amount of the average tax bill that goes towards debt excluded projects that we have already approved. So currently in FY21, we're at $298. The orange represents what the cost will be for the public safety building, the debt exclusion amount, what it translates to on the average tax bill. And that is under $100 a year. So that's $90 a year. Again, your home's valued at $427,000. It's going to be $90. If it's valued less than 427, it's going to be less than 90. If it's valued higher than 427, it's going to be higher than 90. And then the blue, I don't want to gloss over either the need, the importance, or the financial impact of the Mendez School. The Mendez project, which is a vital project for this community as well, and will be voted on at the same time. That is shown in the blue, what that means for a tax increase for the average homeowner there. You know what happens if you look at the declining debt, or that debt that's in gray that goes down, and you layer on top the tax bill for these two new projects, it totals 539. So that's as high as it gets. That's if we don't add any more debt exclusions. If you look at the difference between what we pay or now for debt excluded projects and what we would be paying, it comes out to like $241. So $241 increase, and there will be two new buildings. Some of the other financial considerations, we're going to save over $30,000 annually in rent. Consolidating buildings is going to lead to less maintenance costs. Obviously, with updated systems, we're going to have a more energy efficient building and utility savings. One thing that kind of gets overshadowed is that we actually have to send officers out to do training, and we have to cover their shifts through overtime. With this new facility, we're going to be able to do the training and qualifications in-house, which will save that cost. But not only that, we can now host training for people and for people from different communities. And so those communities are now going to start paying us to do the trainings or host the trainings, host the qualifications. And then we've talked a while about accrediting our police department. We've gone as far as we can in the accreditation process without a new facility. The only thing that holds us back is a new facility. And once we build that, we can go ahead and get accredited, and that should provide more funding opportunities for us. I wanted to just briefly cover expenditures, because we hear a lot about taxes are high, and high is a relative term. If it's high compared to what? If it's low compared to what? I like to look at expenditures per capita because it's a good way to get an apples to apples comparison. It's not taxes, but it shows the efficiency of government. And I look at, our neighbors, and, that includes some very wealthy communities like Sherburne and Sudbury. It also includes some not so wealthy communities like Marlboro, Milford, and Framingham. And if you look at what the expenditures per capita, looking at the general fund, you'll see we're second from the bottom. We're a little over $3,000. So think about, what we're able to do and what we're able to provide and what we're going to do with basically as efficiently as possible compared to all of these other communities. And I know the next question is going to be, well, we have fees, we have enterprise funds. So I took the liberty of going ahead and actually just factoring in the enterprise funds for Ashland and seeing what this looked like. Again, I'm not factoring in the enterprise fund costs for any of the other communities, just Ashland. And as you see, we actually bump up a whopping 2 marks there. We jump ahead of Milford and Framingham. And I can tell you Framingham has several enterprise funds that would certainly have them jump over. But again, I'm not factoring it. So even when you factor in the enterprise funds, we're a good value. Another thing that comes up is, investment in our facilities, or whether we've made investments in our facilities. We have really made a concerted effort over the last few years to make that investment in facilities. This just represents our capital spending. You can see over the last few years that's grown tremendously. And then if you just look at the facilities budget, including personnel and everything, you've seen that grow. And that's actually after we have reduced costs through the utility line items by doing some energy efficiency measures. This year, we're going to create a standalone facilities department for the municipal buildings. Previously, we had shared it with the schools. And finally, one of the more, I think, exciting things about this project that, again, we don't talk a lot about is repurposing the Main Street properties. These are critical locations in downtown. Everybody knows the kind of investment that we've made in downtown and that we are making in downtown, both from a town standpoint and private investment. And so the vacating of these two facilities is going to give us an opportunity to redevelop those. The fire station, obviously, it's a historical building for us. We would want to keep that, I think. I personally would. I don't know what the community would think, but we've got some examples around Massachusetts of repurposed adaptive reuse of fire stations, including just in Norwood, just down the street, or not down the street, but a little ways away, not too far away. They've got the Old Colonial Cafe. That gets the town $90,000 annually in revenue, and it increases every year. And this is down the street, Amazing Things Art Center in Framingham. So that is another repurposed fire station. And then, I've not heard anybody call the police station historic. I've heard it called a lot of other things, but if we do not feel like we need to keep that building, we could do something like tear it down and use it for public parking. And we could actually get about 50 spots for that. So the next steps for this, obviously Saturday is the vote at special town meeting. And then on Wednesday, the ballot for the debt exclusion. We'll spend the rest of January and February, we'll go through February, continuing to vet the lowest bidders, and make a determination on who we're going to go with there, and then work on contract documents. And hopefully we start breaking ground in April and go through the construction process, and hopefully we will finish in the summer of 2022. So I appreciate everybody's patience and appreciate you listening. And we will open it up for questions. If you'd like to, you can, there's a raise hand feature. Deb, you've got your own raise hand feature.
Hi. Yeah, I couldn't find it quickly enough. Sometimes it's at the bottom of the screen. I'm going, because some people know me and know what kind of person I am, I'm going to have to raise the elephant in the room. And I apologize for doing this at this last minute, but I just have a question. Well, maybe I have 3 questions. First of all, I want to thank everybody for the work on making it sustainability, the commitment to sustainability. And so I'm very uncomfortable, but I just want to say that I believe in police abolition. There have been enough reasons why it's not working for everybody. So I want to know, I believe in all the things that you're talking about, Michael, and the safety for everybody in the current situation, that it should be better. But I also hope that in time we can come up with something better than policing. So I want to know, is there a way to, transition those, if we did get rid of policing, transition those rooms to more social services? And then my last question is, because I do believe in social services, and you were talking about the things coming out of the budget to save money, to not, to go towards the building. I hope social services are not being cut.
Thank you, Deb. And I understand how uncomfortable that probably was for you to say, and I appreciate it. I'll probably start with your last point and move backwards. Social services is not being cut, or human services. That was something that that was a commitment I made in 2016 when I was appointed, was to create and enhance our human services department. And we've continued to make more investments in that department, adding a social worker, adding people to our community center staff. Really have to give Jen a shout out for that and the work that she's done and the leadership that she's provided. So that is not going to be reduced. If anything, we look at increasing that. We actually incorporate elements of social services in our policing operations already. And Chief Alfano, correct me if I'm wrong or if I leave something important out. But for example, we have a jail diversion program. We actually have a mental health clinician go on appropriate calls with us to, again, keep people, get them the help that they need and not necessarily locking them up. It's a great model. It's worked for us. In terms of policing, I think, policing in general across, the country is going to be examined over the next few years. I do think that there will probably be adjustments that are made. And we will obviously have to react to those as they happen. I will tell you, though, that the facilities that we currently are working in, the police facilities, physical environment's really, really important. And, those facilities could actually lead to more confrontations than would be necessary, than if we had, a proper facility. Chief, could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Certainly. A very large part of what we do in policing, matter of fact, a larger part than actual criminal law enforcement, are social services. We deal with all types of calls every day. Very, very few of them actually are related to actual crimes, medical emergencies, assisting people in need, providing very critical services to people. The new facility offers us an expanded scope of social services. For example, Mr. Herbert mentioned our clinicians. We have a very wonderful staff of clinicians that work with our department. When I left the station this morning, there was a clinician sitting in our roll call room with the ceiling falling down on top of her, and she's unable to even interview people or bring clients in the current station. In the new station, they would have dedicated space in private, comfortable space to interview clients and to assist people in times of need. The new station would have a very large training and community room. We can run a gamut of community service and community help programs, both the fire and police department. So the new building actually helps us expand our role in social services.
Does that help answer some of your questions, Deb?
Michael, could I add an editorial note with respect to that question that Deb posed? Deb, I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, but the town of Ashland many years ago was the first town in Massachusetts to provide and develop a youth diversion program for the court system. It was so well accepted that it became the model for the state. And that's when I started working with the police department and working with the juveniles at that time. And that was to Isabel Harrison and Officer Harry Marchetti, who sat down and developed this program. And it became well received throughout the entire state. Just wanted to add that.
That's great. Thank you. I also know I did a diversionary program last year for C4RJ, Communities for Restorative Justice. So.
Good.
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I see somebody who just joined. Give him a chance to question. While we're waiting, Joe, I do know that you had some questions that you had collected that you wanted to address.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. Received an email with several questions that let me just turn on my light. My eyesight's been overused today, especially with the multiple Zoom meetings that I've had, so I apologize. I'll put my Magoo glasses on. The question that was asked was, would you please provide a breakdown of the kinds of potential expected charges to the public safety building contingency monies built into the construction estimate cost? Well, if we knew those figures and we knew what the contingencies were, I would pick 6 numbers and I'd be close to a billionaire tonight. I don't think anybody without a crystal ball could even consider what the contingencies could be. One of them could possibly be, we know that there's a lot of ledge and bedrock in that particular area, and we may have to blast, we may have to do that. How much of it, we really don't know. So that could be one of the larger contingencies issues that we would have to deal with. And I think Michael would agree to that, along with Steve, if we've walked and done that walkthrough. And the other question was, could these potential contingency monies be billed to a specific account and provide a project number so the taxpayers would know where these monies are going to? Now, if they're part of this construction project, I would assume that we would have some sort of line item figure that we could utilize that. So I don't think that would be an issue.
Joe, I can talk to the contingency for a second if you like.
Sure, John, please.
So, in general, the contingency is for, it's for unexpecteds. So in this case, as Michael had said, the first thing the contingency is covering is, as he said, the number carried was the low bidder, but we're being prudent in carrying in the contingency right now the funds to cover the difference between the first bidder and the second bidder, because we're still going through our due diligence. So that's one of the things that's in there. Contingencies are also used to cover a litany of unexpected items that could come up, latent conditions. As you said, Joe, there's a lot of ledge out there, and the bid covers a lot of that ledge. I think 7,000 yards was the number of ledge removal out there. But if we run into an extra 1,000, that's what the contingency covers. It also is meant to cover, any manner of other hard costs or other soft costs. So whether there's an owner ad that comes up along the way, we get halfway through the project, and hey, it would be great if we could, add this to the project along the way. We go ahead and, we can add, we can go through that process as well. But what's important to know is that these contingency monies are tracked very closely, so that at any time, anybody who's interested, can inquire as to what, why we're using them, where those are going, and we're tracking it, because we understand that those contingency monies, if we don't spend them, they go back to the town. So Michael's number for that $90 a household is less than $90 if we don't spend a penny of the contingency. Now, I've been doing this too long to tell you that you won't spend any. You will spend some of it, and it's just the reality of construction. But we have a conservative contingency, and me as your project manager, that makes me happy. My goal is to give as much of that money back to not give it back, not even use it to begin with, never mind give it back, so that hopefully a couple of years from now, you can go to town meeting and you've got money left over and you're saying, here, we didn't spend it. So that appropriation, which, is 30.9, ends up being 30. Fabulous. That's successful for everybody.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that. The last question with respect to the potential contingency charges, the resident wanted to know, does this include any related in any way to the eminent domain land taking that was approved last week with the intended use for the public safety building, including but not limited to items such as legal fees and potential settlements for the donated land that the public safety building will be utilizing. I can tell you that the answer to that question last week was that the town is not spending a dime on the gift property and taking it by eminent domain. We have no intentions of using any of this money for that purpose or any town money in any way, shape, or form. It's a gift, and we're taking that gift land by eminent domain. There will be no fees associated to that. And if I'm wrong, Michael, please, chastise me, but I believe that I'm correct.
No, so Joe, you're correct. It was filed. So the board did take the property on January 6th, awarded $0 for compensation because, as was even asked in the question, it identifies it as a donation. And we did have a gift agreement that outlined terms, and we had met those terms. And of course, so um, we honored it by taking it for $0. And actually, I think it's important to note that we're trying, our relationship with the owner of that property, the former owner, and the owner of the rest of the property is really, we're looking at forging an amicable relationship with that person. So that being said, if there are any charges, we appropriated money at town meeting for that, including in the legal fees. So hopefully that answers the question.
I hope so. I hope it puts it all to bed. But I'm sure it may be asked in another way within the next day or two. However, those are the questions I had. I hope there are others that are out there watching, have questions or even comments. We need to hear from you. We'd like to hear from you. And I appreciate Deb's question, and it was an appropriate question to ask. And, with accreditation, if this building gets passed and the town moves along, the department moves along with getting accredited, the fundings that would be more available to this department could go to more training, more education, more diversifying diversity training as well to help close that gap between what's out there and what is perceived. So hopefully that would benefit all of us in this during these times. So thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? Any more questions? All right. If not, actually, Joe, I'll ask you to wrap it up tonight.
So
Before we do,
Michael,
Oh, sorry, Steve.
yeah, before we wrap off, I just wanted to acknowledge and thank a number of organizations and boards that have been expressed their support for the public safety building, and as well as the Mendez project as well. And that includes, I see Rob Muhlenbeek is on the call from the Sustainability Committee. They've been supportive. Decisions at Every Turn, supporting the public safety building project. The Fire and Police Union that came out with support for the project. And last night at our select board meeting, the select board voted to support both projects. And I received a message earlier tonight that the school committee voted to support both projects as well. So we'll be sending out a joint resolution tomorrow from the select board and the school committee in support of both of these projects. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and I think that's important, from a community perspective.
Yeah, I think that is important, Steve, because one of the things I said last night is I hope people don't interpret us. Our focus as the Public Safety Building Committee is to focus on the Public Safety Building Committee, but I hope people don't interpret that to mean that we are not in support of Mendez. It's just the opposite. We think both are just incredibly important for the future of this community, for our kids, and the public safety building for our first responders and our families. So, Joe?
Thank you, Michael. I want to thank you for the wonderful presentation again that you offered again this evening. I wish there was more questions that residents had, but maybe they don't have any more questions. Maybe all their questions have been answered and they're ready for the vote. So I look forward to that on Saturday. Just to remind everybody, the town special town meeting is this coming Saturday, beginning at 10 o'clock at the Ashland High School. And if I remember correctly, I believe that we will be holding this meeting until 2:30 to probably 3 o'clock to get everybody that needs to vote or wants to vote on these two projects, the affordability to do so under the guidance of the pandemic virus codes that need to be followed, that the governor has mandated. And I know that the committee and I know that the moderator and his crew have worked diligently to make sure that the next special town meeting is a safe environment for those who wish to come and vote or who wish to come in person and listen to the presentations again and vote again. This has been a long 3 years. For me, it's been a long 34 years since I put that uniform on 34 years ago, and proudly and honorably. I loved working for the PD. When I walked into that new building in 1978, I can remember Chief Confrati turning to us and says, "We outgrew it already." And it was a brand spanking new building. So we knew we were in trouble then. We were on top of one another. They still are, but to the point where now it's falling on them. It's falling apart. It needs to be corrected. It needs to be done. This was discussed over 30 years ago about having it, but unfortunately there were other bigger problems that needed to be corrected, such as a new high school, which we thought was far more important than putting in a public safety building. But now is the time. It needs to be done. It should have been done a while ago, but this is our opportunity to get it passed. And I hope that the residents agree with that and vote for it. I know, and I can surely discuss and understand that this is a difficult time. And there are many people out there that have retired and since retired are on fixed incomes. I'm one of them. Steve Mitchell is one of them. But we agree and we all understand that the future of this community is now. You build it now, you don't have to worry about it later. Nor will it be half as expensive 2 to 3 years from now. If I remember correctly, John Lemieux was telling us when we first started this process that exponentially the price of construction goes up about 2 to 3% every year. Is that right, John? If I remember correctly? I'm sorry, John, I can hardly hear you.
Before COVID, Joe, it was tracking around
5%. Okay.
But labor and materials, labor especially, always goes up. So even when prices for materials are flat, prevailing, our projects are public, they're all prevailing wage, that goes up every year. So, it's always going to cost more later, always. Maybe not as much, but 10 years out, it's a much different price. So
thank you, John. Again, I would like to thank the entire Public Safety Building Committee. Michael had introduced them earlier. I won't repeat the entire list, but my sincerest gratitude for all the time and effort that was put into this project by them all. Jen and Michael, who were the cornerstones of our financial information and providing us with the guidance to get us through this. John, our OPM, and Janet and Amy from HKT. Thank you so much for all your dedicated work, and the folks at PAIR for doing all the work and diligent work. And for the Fraffers who donated the land to us. We can't forget that they provided us this land so that we could get this building built.
Yeah.
I would like to thank everybody for that. I hope that this project passes. Like I said, it's been 34 plus years. And I just hope we can get this done as a community.
Yeah.
It's not going to benefit me. I'm not coming to work, not like, Chief will be going to work or Chief Roby will be going into that new building, but I will come and visit and take pride into that new building as I took pride going into that old building that I used to work in. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for attending tonight's meeting. If you have any additional questions that you can think of or you forgot to ask, I ask that you email us at our email address, which is publicsafetybuilding@ashlandmass.com. That's PSB. And I just would say thank you, and please support this project. It's much
Joe,
needed.
Joe, before we sign off, I think we should acknowledge both Chief Roby and Chief Alfano for all the work that they've put into this. Chief Alfano, he's new to our community relatively, but he's put his heart and soul into this project, as Chief Roby as a townie has as well. So, I guess, from my perspective, and I think from yours, I mean, this community has been good to us, and this is our opportunity to pay forward. And as you said earlier, Joe, it's we're not, this is for the next generations, and it's important, it's needed, and it's the time. And again, I agree with your last statement. We ask residents to support this.
It's a sense of pride. It comes down to having a sense of pride with what we have. But having a new building for all our employees to come to work. And just one quick note, I just want to let everybody know that, and it wasn't brought up during any of the discussions, but Chief Roby and Chief Alfano brought these plans back to their men and women and asked them, what do you think we need for this building? So their input was greatly appreciated and was utilized in the design and development of the interior of the building. They're the ones that are going to work on it every day, 24/7, 365. They should have some say in what they need and how and where it should be located. And we took their considerations, we took their notes, and we passed it on to the designer. And the design that you see today is the design that was done through the recommendations of all those who'll be working in that building, something that hasn't been done in quite some time. So I just want to thank both of you, chiefs, for getting your men and women involved right at the beginning of this project. So thank you again. Thank you all very much for being here this evening. I appreciate all the hard work. And all I can ask is please support this. It's much needed. And thank you for those who are here listening this evening. We'll see you soon. Thank you and good night.